Good morning, and my name is Dale Long. I'm an emergency physician at St. Mary's Hospital in Centralia, Illinois, where it's been my privilege to work for 13 years, mostly night shift. To calm my heart down a little bit, I better tell you a joke. This 28-year-old man was brought to the emergency room by the EMS and the police. He was trying to kill himself, so he drank a fifth of vodka and swallowed a bunch of nitroglycerin pills. Examining the fella, he was bruised all over his head and his chest, badly bruised. And asking him about this, he said, "Well, I was slamming myself into the wall so the nitro would blow up." Some serious remarks. Starting with a quote from the Bible, Romans 12:6 says, "God has given us different gifts for doing things well." 12:7 says, "If your gift is serving others, serve others well." I've been given a certain set of gifts, and my skills have fit well in the emergency room. I've done that since 1979, actually. And the only place I've ever worked more than several years is SSM. SSM has captured my heart in ways that are similar to Amy. And I have been treated very kindly. I have been a non-employed person, actually. I work in contract as an emergency doctor. Usually we do. And our company has continued our contract at this facility for many years. And I'm happy to be part of it. As healthcare professionals, in serving others, we should strive for excellence. And SSM has that as a standard. They publish it all the time. And the administration literally lives that way. I've been part of the administration a little as the medical director of our ER, and we take turns doing that. I've been through 4 of us so far. I was the second of the 4. And we wear each other out, staying on the team. We're still all there. We like our hospital, and I like the system. Let me tell you a story about a man who lived an interesting life and came back to tell us about it. He fits Winston Churchill's statement about we make a living by what we get, but we make our life by what we give. This man was brought in, older guy, came in by EMS looking like he was dying, and actually he was. I figured he was from a nursing home. He didn't look very good, and it didn't look like he'd been sick only a brief period. It looked like he'd been sick a long time. He was in bad shape, shocky, had a fever, looked dehydrated. And I said, "Is there anybody with him to tell me about this guy?" Because I assumed there'd be a health record of this very sick man. And in came a younger woman, lovely lady, and I said, "Can you tell me about your dad?" And she looked at me with that look and said, "He's my husband." And I'm feeling awkward. In fact, I was feeling pretty much like I felt the day I asked a lady when her baby was due. And she said, "I'm not pregnant. I'm just fat." Well, my older gentleman got the care our ER team typically gives. He got a lot of fluid real quick, got cultured up in all the places you got to look for bugs in people, got a CAT scan, went through all the things, and within an hour, 2 hours, he'd had a lot of fluid, and he was looking a lot better. Turned out he had an abscess in his colon. Diverticulitis was abscessed, and so he had become septic. He was very sick. And he went on to the ICU. His physician came in to see him. They were personal friends. And he said, "Yep, his wife's right. This guy does not know his age. He has no health problems. He was fine until tonight. And later on, I found out that he had a family gathering where he was hosting it, and he didn't want to ruin it for everybody by telling them my belly hurts. So he cheerfully waited until everybody had gone home, and then he collapsed. So I met him after he'd been quite a fella. And a few weeks after this event, a guy came up to me as I walked in with my bag to go to work, and this guy shows up and he kind of gets in my face and he says, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I actually did. As soon as he did that, I know this guy. And I said, "Remind me why I should remember you." "I do, though." And he said, "I'm that guy, that old guy." And he certainly didn't seem like an old guy. So sometimes, like Amy shared, people suddenly are in trouble. And things can be done to make them better. It's nice to have a certain set of skills that we get to do that often in the ER. Another cheerful thing, a baby's brought in the arms of its parents, seizing. Apparently they lived very close to the hospital, and as soon as the baby's eyes rolled back, they were watching, and the baby started jerking. They grabbed the baby, ran to the car, ran to the ER, just ran right up to the window with their baby, obviously seizing. And we went into the first room. The ER nurses stuck IVs in the baby, and we cultured the baby and got urine from the baby, gave the baby a suppository. And quite literally within the hour, the baby looked like there was nothing wrong with it. It didn't have meningitis. It was a febrile seizure, the typical thing that happens to children whose fever goes up real fast. And he sees. He looked fine at an hour, sucking down Pedialyte. He'd had IV fluids, and he was cooing and playing, and I'd hold him for a while. The nurses all pass him around, and the parents are all eager to go home. We made them wait a little bit longer. By 2 hours, I really did discharge the baby, and they'd had their fever, seizure information, and all given to them. And this happens often in the ER, but it didn't always turn out good. This one turned out good, and that was fun. One more happy story. Lady shows up, and she said that she was going to Chicago on the Amtrak in the morning. And she'd gotten everything ready and had her car packed so she could just clean up, go to the Amtrak, and go up to Chicago for her 30th high school reunion, where there was a fellow up there she was hoping to see if he was still available, apparently. But that's not how she presented. She presented vomiting and really sick, looked like she was having something very bad wrong with her. Maybe a bleed in her head, maybe quite a few things that come to mind if you're an ER person. Well, she didn't have anything really bad. We made her vomiting stop and kept her still, got her comfortable, and I told her she had rocks in her head. And she didn't know what that meant. Most of us might not know what that means. But as we get older, we can have little rocks form in our semicircular canals, the inner ear, the one that tells us our balance. And if they roll when we turn, you feel sick, really sick. And if you don't figure it out and stay still, you just keep getting sicker and sicker until you start throwing up. And some people can't stop throwing up once they start. Well, that was her. So we got her comfortable, and I told her about the rocks. I told her that I could make the rocks roll into a place where they couldn't roll anymore. But I'd make her sick for 30 seconds. Would she be willing to do it? She said, "Oh, yes." And then she told me, "I got to get on the Amtrak in 2 hours." And there's this guy, and she was fine at the moment. I said, "I'm going to make you sick doing this maneuver." And she said, "Okay." And we did the maneuver. She got sick for 30 seconds, and then she was absolutely fine. I made her wait a little longer. She wanted to go. She wanted us ready. And she left. She came back. She came back the next week, actually, and found me and told us that worked. And she had hooked up with this guy, and they So some things actually do happen that are fun in the ER. And for me, I think I was built to do that. And I thank SSM for having been a system that I'm proud to be part of. And in closing, I want to quote something Brian Tracy, SSM's Brian Tracy, says, "Excellence not a destination. It's a continuous journey that never ends. Let's keep that journey going, ongoing. Thank you very much.